Hey guys, today I'm back to talk about some books, some movies and maybe some TV shows that I have read and watched in June. And this has been an okay month for me, but not too great. I had a little bit of a reading slump, but I'm finally getting over it, reading again, stuff like that. So let's just see what I have to show you. The first book I wanted to talk about is Disgrace by adler-olsen. And this is a thriller. Now I got the book from the library, so I don't have it here to show you. But this book is mainly about a detective that has kind of a weird backstory, and he was transferred to a new department that is all about cold cases. And his name is Carl, and he has to solve like these cold cases. And then one day there is actually a case file turning up on his desk with a case that was closed. And he's like, okay, what is this doing here? This is not what I'm supposed to do. But he gets sucked into this case and soon realizes that there is much more to it. Now this is all about a clique of private school kids, and there were some horrible things happening, and one day they were connected to a double murder with a brother and a sister killed, and one of these kids, he said that he did it and all the others went free, and now they're like really successful people, and it's all about how they're involved in this murder and how it all, you know, really came together and stuff like that. So I did enjoy this book. It's the second book in a series, and I must say that the first book like blew me away. Mercy is fantastic, like one of the best thrillers I ever read, and I knew going into it that this wouldn't be as good, but it was still a little bit disappointing. I felt like it was not so thrilling, like I don't know, there was just something missing. It was interesting to read about and there were some horrific things happening, but all in all I just felt like it was just an okay book. And so I decided to give it 4 out of 5 stars because it is solid, it is interesting, the writing style is great, but it just lacked something for me. The next book I wanted to talk about is actually a German book. I don't think it has been translated yet. And it is called Die Katzen von Montmartre, which basically means the cats of Montmartre. This is a kind of mystery, like a criminal story set in Paris. And it's all about cats. So there is actually a murder, but the cats are the main focus of the story and they have their own problems. But while solving that, they also kind of discover the truth behind the murder. I liked this book. It was very interesting. My best friend actually got it for review, but she wasn't so interested, so she first gave it to me so I can read it. And it's probably something that I wouldn't have paid for, which sounds really bad, but you know, there's just books that you don't buy. Like maybe you get it from the library one day, and I think that is such a book. It is entertaining, it's fun to read, and it actually taught me things about cats that I didn't know yet. And I think that is always fun, you know, if you like cats, it's actually worth a read, definitely. And the murder case was not obvious, but also not super difficult to solve. But there were some kind of side stories that were all very interesting, but I felt like the book is so short, it was all a little bit too crammed up together. So I did enjoy it, but I think it tried too much at the same time. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely enjoyable, and if you're into cats, I would recommend it, but don't expect the best murder mystery you've ever read. And after that, I actually decided to read some of my own books. And the one I picked up was Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Now, I have read this book when I was around 18, and so I just wanted to reread it because I actually did not remember anything. Now, I did a few things wrong that I want to mention quickly, which then affected how I felt about the book. Now, the first thing is that I actually did read the introduction first, which you should never do with a classic, because these introductions always spoil the story. There's always some kind of interpretation, like someone intelligent telling you what this book is actually about and what all these themes mean, stuff like that. And it will spoil the storyline. And since I didn't remember anything, that actually sucked, which was kind of a bad thing for me to do, and I know that you don't do that, but I felt like I've read the story before, so I thought it would come back eventually, which promise me it did not. It absolutely did not. So that was the first mistake. The second mistake was that I actually started reading it in a reading slump. Like, I knew that after a third book that I've read, namely A Sea of Tranquility, I was in a reading slump, I didn't really feel like reading, and so this was not the best book to pick up. Even though I thought, reading a kind of love story would actually help me because I was really in the mood, because The Sea of Tranquility, I can't say that, is actually a very good love story for me at least. I very much enjoyed that. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, that was the second mistake. And then the third thing is that I remember not loving this book, and I think rereading something that you didn't love is always a little bit difficult. So overall, this is not my favorite Austen book. It's also not my least favorite Austen book. My least favorite is Northanger Abbey, but this is a second place on the least favorite list. So this is a story about Marianne and Eleanor, and they lose their father pretty young, and they have to live with their mother and a smaller sister, and they basically lose their house because it all goes to their half brother John, and so they're practically all alone, and they have to figure out life. Now, Eleanor quickly falls in love with the brother of her half-brother's wife, which is, what's his name? Edward. And they fall in love, but the sister, she's like, no, that can't happen because your family is too poor to marry into my family. So the Dashwoods, which is, Marianne, Eleanor, and their mother, they're actually quite offended by that, and they move away. And then Marianne meets a guy called Willoughby, I think that's how you say it, and falls in love with him. But he doesn't have like the best intentions. And so it's all about these two girls figuring out love, figuring out how to, live with all these expectations and everything that is that is just in their society and stuff like that, and all the limits and all the rules and stuff. And I did always like this main setup, but I feel like with this book I never got enough of the male characters to see why the female characters actually like them so much. Like, you only see the drama, but you don't really see like any cutesy scenes. So you don't really see their love, you only see how it's not going to work out. That's something that really bothered me with this book. Also, I felt like all the different storylines, they were just a little bit too much for my taste. And I felt like it would have been good to have, one sister's story dominate the others a little bit. But I don't know, this is just not my favorite. And I also watched the movie for this, the 1995 version, and it is cutesy, and I think it's actually a little bit better to understand the love situation. But in the end, it just didn't feel right. It's just not my Jane Austen book. So I think I gave this 3 stars. And it took me a long time to read this, almost 4 weeks. I gave this 3 stars. So that was that. Sorry, I rambled on so long about a freaking book. Now we have the last book of the month, which was Starshot. And this is by Marianne Constantine. And this was in my May month box. And this really stood out to me. First, it is a gorgeous cover. It's absolutely stunning. But then also the whole part fable, part mystery thing sounded really intriguing to me. Now this book is about different people in Cardiff. And this is not like the real Cardiff, but like a little bit of a fantasy version of it. Like there is something going on with that Cardiff that is not real, but it still feels very, how do you say that? It still feels very real, like very realistic. I've never been there, so I don't know, but yeah, it's all about these different characters. And I have to say, at first I was a little bit confused because you never know who is telling the chapter. Like with every chapter you get into a different person's head, and you don't get told whose it is, so you always have to figure out, okay, that is that guy and that is that guy. So in the beginning that is super confusing, but after about 50 pages I got sucked in. I fell in love with all the characters. And I cared deeply about all the characters, which is not really a usual thing for me. So I feel like this is a very character-driven book, and you can absolutely love every single one of them. They all have kind of a tragic story. There's a woman with cancer. There's a woman from Syria who lost her whole family. There's a guy that lost his brother in Syria who was a reporter. There is also this guy who lost his wife to a tumor and has to bring up his son all by himself, whatever. And yeah, it's a very complex story, but they all have their struggles, and it's about these characters who don't really know each other, but for some reason they find each other in this city and they form a group and a bond that is just so much more. And I don't know, this just gave me all the feels. The characters are so great, and there is this little like mystery fantasy aspect, but honestly I wouldn't have needed that. Like I think I gave this one 4 stars because, you know, the mystery thing just wasn't really my thing. Yeah, 4 stars. So this is all the books I wanted to talk about. Let me know if you've read any of those, and let's move on to series and movies. So the first movie I wanted to talk about quickly is A Monster Calls. Now I've read the book a couple of months ago and absolutely loved it, so I decided to go and see how I like the movie. And I have to say that the movie is actually as good as the book. I would still prefer reading the book just because of the illustrations, and I just feel like it's very well written, super great. But the movie is great as well, and if you can't bother with the book, just go and see the movie. It's really good. I really like the way they did the stories, and it just felt very, very good to me. I did not have the same reaction to the ending just because I think I was prepared this time. Like when reading the book, I just wasn't prepared for the message at the end. It just got me. Didn't have that with the movie, but I still think it was done very well. Like this moment when there is like, it's all silent and stuff, and you see things falling into place in Connor's head. Absolutely great. Loved it. Can only recommend it. So that was actually the only movie we went to see in cinemas. As I said, I also watched the Sense and Sensibility movie, which was cool, but you know, it's a little bit cheesy, to be honest. Like my favorite Austen movie is the Pride and Prejudice 2005 version, and I feel like nothing compares to that. It's all just cheesy compared to that, but it was okay, and I felt like it was a little bit better than the book, to be honest. And then we also watched Supernatural, the current season. It was such a good season, I have to admit that. But the final fucking episode, like what was that? And how and why? And it was all so stupid. it just really bothered me. I just can't. And I don't know whether I will continue without, you know who I'm talking about. I don't know whether I can continue without him. So, yeah. That's that. What else did we watch? We just started Black Mirror, but we've just finished the first season of that, which is just 3 episodes, but they're all very different and all very relevant. And if you want a discussion on the single episodes of season 1, let me know. But it's an interesting series so far. I think that's all I have to talk about right now. My little camera is flashing because I'm running out of, battery. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, leave me a like so I know. You can also write me a comment with something you want to tell me because I like to hear that. And if you want, subscribe for more wrap-ups and maybe more book-related stuff if you want. Have a great day and I will talk to you soon. Bye!
Mm-hmm.